Hey guys, new details in the murder case of Cash App founder Bob Lee. That and I have an admission to make. But first off, as I previously reported, there was an arrest made of a man named Nima Momeni who actually knew Bob. So what's the new details? The motive, my dear Watson, the motive. Bob Lee was stabbed to death twice in the torso, one being in the heart and another time in the hip, by Nima Momeni, a fellow tech business owner and acquaintance, over some sort of concern for his sister, Kazar Momeni Eliasnia. Kazar is a married woman whose marriage may have been on the rocks lately. This from a male friend of both Bob Lee and Kazar, the sister of defendant Nima Momeni. This unidentified friend had also happened to be with both of them the night Bob was killed and provided all the missing details in Nima's alleged motive. He said that he had met Bob and Kazar where they had been drinking at a house on the 1500 block of Mission Street. After a while, Bob had told the witness they would be leaving and invited Kazar to go with them, but she declined. They were headed back to Bob's hotel room. Once there, Kazar's older brother Nima FaceTime called Bob and questioned him as to if his sister had done any drugs or anything inappropriate, to which Bob reassured him nothing had happened. They then left to go to the witness's apartment and continue to hang out until 12:30 a.m. when Bob left. The witness never saw Bob again. The next morning, the witness calls Kazar to see if Bob went to her apartment at the Millennium Tower in San Francisco. Kazar said he came to her apartment for a second, but she fell asleep, so she didn't know when he left. Now remember when I said in our first video that there had been footage because there's cameras everywhere in those areas? There's cameras everywhere there. I don't care if it's 2:30 in the morning, 1 o'clock in the daytime. Something's going to be caught on camera if it happens there. Now, the first red flag for me is initially there was no footage put out. Well, yeah, I was right. There's footage of everything. Unreleased camera footage shows Nima, Kazar's brother, arrived at his sister's apartment in his white BMW Z4 that night at 8:31 p.m. Footage also shows Bob showing up to her apartment at 12:39 a.m. the following morning of April 4th. Cameras then show Bob and Nima enter an elevator and leave the building together and get into Nima's BMW to expectedly drop off Bob at his hotel, but Bob never made it to his hotel. Instead, more camera footage shows throughout the city them drive to a dark part of the 400 block of Main Street. The car is out of footage range when it parks, but the red glow of its parking lights are seen. Video images of two men matching the clothes they were wearing can be seen entering on frame on camera and standing on the sidewalk for about 5 minutes before allegedly Nima suddenly lunges at Bob. When they separate, Nima is seen by a fence momentarily where the murder weapon was later discovered. He then leaves Bob to bleed out and die while speeding off in his car. What a senseless tragedy. Now who remembers when I made the points that it most likely wasn't random and that it likely was premeditated? They learn areas on the bodies to exploit so that death is swift, or to at least ensure that the person will bleed out, which means die from losing too much blood. Also, the number of stab wounds sometimes indicates if it was a crime of passion, or maybe one of a premeditated nature. When somebody loses it and goes crazy and is in a fit of rage, they tend to stab people many times. The word overkill comes to mind. And a sign of a professional premeditated murder would be one where there were minimal stab wounds, indicating it was done quickly with the intention of not being discovered and for the victim to die. Yep, I was on point there too. But I need to be the first to admit that something I left on the table as a possibility of being who might have killed Mr. Lee looks now to be incorrect. I wanted to leave you with an open mind to thoughts other than those made by mainstream media, which, by the way, right or wrong, is always a good idea, because if not, your mind is being made up for you. Now, I would be a terrible journalist like many of those in mainstream media if I didn't admit when I was wrong, or when I was seemingly wrong. In our first two videos on the subject, I alluded to the fact that Bob's app Mobi was in the way of an indirect competition with FedNow, the federal government's payment service that will expose all of your finances to the government, while Bob's service Mobi was for the people and was private. My assumption that this may have been the reason for his death appears now to be wrong. Hey, nobody's perfect, and certainly not me. But I do like to be accurate, and I think you deserve it. Of course, as always, thank you for watching. My sincerest condolences to the Lee family and to the Momenis. No one should have to mourn because of a bad decision. Stay safe, and always say I love you to the ones you love. Please subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Thank you.